Hi everyone, welcome to your first session then, which is about understanding the business really, so the structure of the organization and the products and services. And again, I'm going to talk very generically because depending on where you're watching this and which organization you're in, this is going to differ. However, when we think about the endpoint exam, it is about your understanding of this particular knowledge requirement. So when you have your professional discussion with the EPA, the Endpoint Assessment Organisation, they're going to ask you a question such as, so tell me about your understanding of your business. And therefore, you should be able to respond in a certain way. You should be able to respond understanding the structure of the organisation, small, medium, large, kind of the type of structure you've got. Do you have different tiers of leadership and management? The legal requirements, whether you're a limited company, a sole trader, for example, a charity, whether you have a board of directors or directors. So you need to understand your organisation structure. You then need to understand the product. What is it you sell? So you should be able to list a good handful of those products that you do. And then alongside that, the services in which you offer as well. And remember, as HR support, it's the services that you give as well. So what is it that you're doing? And how does that look in the external market? So the big picture, if we look across industry, what does that look like? And then understanding how other sectors operate. So, and how your business fits within that. And if you remember what I said from the welcome video, you must understand your business values because it is by the values in which we operate and how we apply everything. So, if I can, oh, there it is. So business understanding then, in a business, we first of all have different organization structures, and this is a typical organization structure. It's where you have your CEO, your executive team underneath them, you then have your departments. So, for example, I'm just thinking again, care sector, you might have the CEO, the owner of the business, the chief executive officer. You might then have a board of directors, people responsible for different functions. So, such as your financial director, your HR director, you might have a business and development director, sales and marketing director, whoever. So, that's your kind of executive team that creates that. And then under there, you then got your registered manager, your deputy, and then under that, you may have your different, kind of your carers, your seniors, your carers, your activity coordinators, your housekeeping. So you should understand how a business is formed, and there are different organizational structures out there. Normally, we don't teach different organization structures until you're into like your master's level 7 for leadership management. But typically, this is kind of what you're looking at. So you don't have to understand all the different types of organization structures. You just need to understand your organization structure as a business. So how does it work for you? Now, if you're in a small business, it very well may be. For example, if you're a sole trader, I work by myself, I'm my own boss. So I am my own CEO, I'm my own manager, I'm my own fine. That's a sole trader. If you're a limited company, you're going to have directors because that's a requirement in law to have a director. So you should know who your accountable people are. So just think about the different structures and how they fit within the organization. And it's useful to have a copy of your organization structure chart to hand, because for you to escalate problems, you need to know who you're escalating them to. When we think about products and services, so here, for example, you would have different products and services. You'd have product A, product B, service A, service B. In your business plan, which you may or may not get to see because they can be seen as commercially sensitive, or within, if you're in care, you've got a statement of purpose, a service users guide, it will list what it is. So a product is the item, the physical thing that you are selling, the item, as it were. And a service is what you're offering as part of that. So, for example, we think about a care home, for example, products there might be respite, might be long-term care, might be 24-hour care, might be, I don't know, weekly holiday care, whatever. So they're products, something you're physically selling that people are going to want and have. And the services alongside that might be laundry. It might be, I don't know, doing additional activities, etc. So just thinking about your products and services is really useful. When we think about our external market and sectors, we need to think about our competitors first of all. So have you done some benchmarking? Do you know who you're working for? So for example, let's say I'm working for Stephen Davis Care Home. I'm an independent care home on my own. Who would be my competitors? So for that, you would need to understand what it is that I'm selling. What's my unique selling point? And let's say that I'm offering residential home for people with, I don't know, cognitive impairments, for example. So for you to be a comparison, you would need to find other independent services that are offering the same service. And therefore, you can then match, can't you? You can then say, well, okay, Steve Davis is offering this, Bob is offering this. Both are cognitive impairment services. Both are offering the same products and services. So for a member of staff, if we look at rates of pay, staff benefits, what are the differences between the two? Because actually, if my competitor is offering a lot more than I am, of course I'm going to struggle to recruit and retain and keep those staff. And when we look at the value of upskilling staff, it's really important to kind of keep staff because they're our most expensive commodity. So understanding our competitors and doing that benchmarking is really important. We should also then understand the market trends. And what we mean by that is what's happening across the whole sector. So we know that during COVID, it was a very difficult time. We know that we were losing staff or hemorrhaging staff. We know that if we now look at today, for example, the political landscape has changed for the first time in 12 years. So our overseas recruitment may or may not change. We have a process called PESTEL, political, economical, social, I can't remember what the others are, but PESTEL, I'll get it for you and drop it in here. But PESTEL is kind of like a framework for understanding what's going on globally. And the reality is, it may be that you're struggling to recruit, retain the talent that you need, but that's not unique to you. It can feel personal to you, but it may be a market trend. And if we understand what's going on in the market trend, we can learn from them. But equally, it may be that we learn the market trends and we learn that the private sector is doing better than the government sector. Why is that? What's the differences? So just understanding a bit about the market is really important. So you should be able to do this comparison of your service versus the marketplace. So what's going on elsewhere? And then customer needs. So really understanding that customers are at the centre of what we're doing. So if we go back to what I was originally saying as a competitor, so let's say I'm doing a cognitive service, is that what we need? Is that what the customers want? Does that align us to a demand? Or have I boxed ourselves into a corner? Have I got lots of empty beds? Because actually that's not at all what the customers need. It's what I thought the business needed. So we can only get customer needs if we understand what customers want. We can only understand what customers want if we do market trends and market research. So from that, we look at maybe surveys, interviews, analysis and feedback to gain that insight into what customers truly want and need. So once we've got all that information, we then need to kind of think about, well, okay, how does this all fit together? How does this now fit within my organization? So first of all, what are my responsibilities? I need to understand my roles and responsibilities, and I need to understand the organization's roles and responsibilities. And ultimately, it's essential that I understand everyone else's. So where am I going to get that information from? Can I get it from job descriptions, job ads? And again, compare that back to the market. So are we expecting too much from our staff? Are we not expecting enough from our staff? What does the home down the road do? You know, is it 1 to 3 carers, 1 to 4 carers? Because again, we know that there's a tool to assess needs. So where does that come from? Responsibilities, looking at those lines, who is accountable for what and how does that fit under that organisational structure? Where are the roles, responsibilities and boundaries? And remember, we spoke about that in the welcome video. Understanding boundaries are really important to line managing somebody and to levels of authority and autonomy. Thinking about the organisation structure, how do we then communicate through that structure? So some businesses will say that they have an open door policy. What does that mean to you? If I say I've got an open door, does it mean that you need to book an appointment or can you walk straight in? Or is it if my door's open, walk in, if my door's closed, then I'm in a meeting? When we think about that, what culture does that create? Does that then create this, I can just deal with everything, or does it just mean people come to you and you end up firefighting all the time? So thinking about how you set your business up, how you manage your service, and how you collaborate with others is really important, because if we haven't got clear lines of communication, clear lines of how we escalate things, we end up in a problem with people going over our heads. And if people go over our heads, it can cause an uncomfortable work environment. So lines of authority are there for a reason, that organisation chart. At the end of the day, the CEO of the business doesn't want to know what's going on with Mary, whether Mary turned up or not, because underneath him, he's got his registered manager, the senior, and it should be dealt with. And if people are going straight to the CEO, then everyone he's employing underneath, what's the point of them? And therefore, he's then not concentrating on his job. And one of the things that you don't really understand in business until you really understand business is, if we are managing everything and everyone, we're not doing our own jobs. Because if we're so busy dealing with everything, we're not achieving anything. Which sounds a bit strange. But what I mean by that is, when I was a director, for example, a director is somebody that leads and shapes an organisation, that looks for opportunities, that grows a business. So when I was a director, I couldn't do my role as a director. I couldn't direct because I was so busy managing. I was so busy on the day-to-day stuff. And actually, I had managers to manage the day-to-day stuff. So why was I managing the managers? And then the managers would complain to me that they hadn't got time to do their jobs because they were too busy doing the caring jobs. And then the carers would be like, oh, but we're so busy, we haven't got time to do our jobs. So it is this whole line of problems where actually, if we are not focusing in our lane and staying in our roles and responsibilities, it means that people can't perform their roles properly. And sadly, what that means is, from the top down, the people that are then responsible for governance, payroll, finance, they're not concentrating what they should be concentrating on because they're too busy getting caught up in politics. And that's what those lines of responsibilities are there for. So your role as HR support is to protect those lines and to understand that actually people say, oh, but they sit in their office, they don't do anything. I mean, it's utter nonsense. If people knew the hours that a director or a manager works, you know, it is not a glamorous role. You are talking 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day with your phone constantly going, people constantly coming at you. Because when you think about it, as a director, as an owner, you've got your staff coming at you, you've got customers coming at you, you've got family coming at you, you've got social services coming at you, you've got CQC coming at you, you've got local authorities and inspectorate agencies coming for you. It is relentless. So when we think about importance, what's going on down here just isn't as important as what's going up there. And that's not to say at all that your managers are being dismissive. It is they are only humans too. There's only so much that they can deal with. And therefore, the small stuff doesn't get dealt with properly. And when the small stuff doesn't get dealt with properly, people feel devalued. So it's really important that HR functions manages those expectations of people to allow leadership to lead the business. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, that moves into teamwork and communication. So effective teamwork and communication is really important. So two theories that you need to remember here is Tuckman's theory and Shannon and Weaver's theory. And actually, I'm going to chuck in a third one, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Because if staff aren't fed, watered, and looked after, they're not going to progress up. If we think about Tuckman's theory of storming, performing, norming, and adjourning, I haven't got that in the right order, but go with it. We understand team dynamics. And when you think about it, when you've got the team that's worked together for the longest time, they all just get on with it. We call it the A team, right? Oh, I'm in the A team today because I'm with my colleagues that I've worked with forever. It takes one new member of staff and it throws that team into storm because you're not now this well-oiled machine. So understand Tuckman's theory is really important in HR. Equally, that sender and receiver that we were talking about, Shannon and Weaver's sender and receiver and communication is really important. So do have a look at those. When we think about our company values, no matter who your company is, again, you can go back to the co-op, right? So the co-op's just done a new ad on TV, looking at their values, which is it's for the people, led by the people. Our prices are on the everyday things that people need. They've tried to create their values around their community. So what are the core principles of your business? Because we need to eat, breathe, and sleep them. And if you go around, just ask your staff after this training, go around and ask your staff and go, can you name me 2 company values? And this is going to be really important because I bet they can't. And that's really sad because if they can't name their company values, they're working for a business that should align to their values, their beliefs. So, for example, if I was to work in a care home, I would want that care home to have a strong focus on promoting independence. They have to have a strong focus of putting the service user at the centre of their care. Just as an example. So if you then said to me, Steve, what are our values? I could then go, well, we're personal centred. And what that means is everyone gets an assessment, everyone's needs are met the way that they want to meet them. If you want to stay up till midnight having a party, you stay up till midnight having a party. If you want a glass of sherry with your Sunday roast, you have a glass of sherry with your Sunday roast, because that's personal centred. And promoting their independence is, when we do those assessments, we provide the resources and tools. So when we move somebody into their room, we reassess their room. We move the furniture around to the way that they want it. The handrail maybe be on the left side in the bathroom, but they want it on the right. So we move it. That's enablement because we're making the environment fit that individual. So when we talk about core values and principles, we should be able to reflect it through everything we do. And therefore, when you see me work, I'm not going to get Margaret her cup of tea if Margaret can get her cup of tea. I'd go, Margaret, come on, get your trolley. Let's go up and get a cup of tea together. Because then I am embedding my values in my behaviour, and that behaviour then improves the service. And those values are designed to improve the service. So it's really important. If we think in retail, customer first, well, then surely when there's a queue of more than 2 or 3 people, we should be helping. If I then say to you, sorry, could you find the baked beans? Rather than you going to me 3 hours to the left, you take me to the baked beans. That's customer first. When you see me with a disabled child and I've got a shopping, maybe I've overfilled my basket, maybe so I can see you've got your hands full there. Would you like me to get you a trolley? That's customer first. Can we see how then the values go into these core principles? So really important that we take this information and we drop it in there. And therefore it becomes a breathable livable thing. So our core principles, our values should be on the back of our ID cards, should be on our statement of purposes, should be on a poster somewhere so we can all see. Ethics, so the 7 principles of ethics, privacy, to do no harm, non-malevolence, and all of that stuff, is all about being honest, transparent, to do no harm. And again, we would like to believe that all businesses have ethics there. The culture of the organization is how it feels. What do we all believe in? How do we have freedom to think? Do we have freedom to speak up? Do we have creativity and innovation? Now, it's all right having these words, and it's the words from the principles, from our core values, that creates our culture. So, for example, we're open, honest, and transparent. That's a lovely value, open, honest, and transparent. What does that mean on a cultural level? What does that mean to the business? Well, it means we're friendly. It means if the door's open, come in, just knock on the door, but show the same level of respect. If I'm on the phone, don't walk in. But if the door's open, because we want you to approach us. Transparent is you said, we did. We hear what you're telling us and we're telling you it back. We do our self-assessments, we publish our reports, we do our audits, we publish our reports, we have complaints, we deal with them, we publish our reports. That's transparent. And honest is, I'm going to do what I say we're going to do. We're not going to lie, we're not going to hide things. So that's culture. And ultimately, culture comes from those core principles. And if we've got our core principles, our core values right, culture naturally comes off part of that. And equally, when we think about celebrating diversity and inclusion, how does that come together? What's the workforce? And from a HR point, if we think about our workforce and we do an equality and diversity spreadsheet, because who doesn't have a spreadsheet? Are we reaching all of those components of our community? And if we have got parts of the community that's not being reached, so let's say, for example, LGBT plus Q, what can we do to actively encourage that talent to come in? And I remember sitting in a CQC inspection, and the first thing my inspector said to me was, this is brilliant, you've got a diverse workforce, where's your LGBTQ data? I said, we've got 2. And they said, well, that's very disproportionate to the rest of the data. He said, so can you now show me that you are actively inclusive? And I thought, God, how do I demonstrate that? So I went to the job ad. And nowhere in our job ad did it say, look, we're open and transparent to LGBT. I thought, no, I can't do that. And then I thought, but we use the words, we have equality and diversity, that we're inclusive. But what we didn't do is we didn't open it up to make all of the community groups feel welcoming to apply. And actually, I then did some number crunching afterwards because my brain just went to jelly. And afterwards, I did some number crunching. And in our community, we had something like a 2.49% demographic. So in other words, when we got the national data, 2.9% of the community was LGBTQ. And actually that 2% was reflective within our organisation. So actually, whilst 2 people had identified, we had met that statistic, but because I hadn't got that data, because we just weren't that ready, I couldn't have that discussion back to then reflect. Actually, our workforce does reflect our community because here's the data of our community. And when you see that gap, what are you going to do to fill it? And that's again with patients as well, or people with customers. So when we look at customers and people, how can we fulfill that? So when we understand the structure of the organization then, and we talk about the hierarchy, that workflow of information, that responsibility, it's important to understand that the organization structure and hierarchy to navigate that workplace effectively and to know who to report to. And equally around those products and services and reflecting back on those shareholders And again, when we look at the market sector and we do some kinds of graphing, we can see how much of the sector is held financially. So we can tell from a business planning point of view whether we're in a good sector. Roles within the organisation, look at responsibilities. So understand your roles and responsibilities. It's crucial for the effective functioning of that well-oiled machine. It helps knowing responsibilities, reporting to line managers, and decision-making processes. We've already spent a little bit of time now talking about those core values and those operating principles. But again, some of your core values will be around integrity, so acting honest and transparent, collaborating with workforce, innovation, and customer focus. These aren't yours, they're just examples of core values. And then the principles of how you do that there. So we take ownership of our responsibility. So this is how we do that. We strive for excellence in what we do. We embrace diversity and foster this. So these are lovely, what I call sweeping statements. When we think about the role of HR support, how do we then meet that? You know, because these are our guiding principles. These are our technically some of our KPIs, our key performance indicators. And as HR, we are meant to breathe this. This is our everyday bread and butter. This is our life. This is our bloodstream. So understanding what we offer is really important as well, because we should understand our unique products and services. We should understand what makes us different, what separates us from our competitors. And we can do this by doing some core activities and goals. So here you can see our organisation's core activities involves the development and the delivery of products and services to meet the needs and demands of its target audience. Now, you would rewrite this within your organisation. And again, looking at these activities include research, development, production, marketing, sales, and customer service. So again, your core activities within your home will look very different, whatever that is. Your goals is, so the organization's goals are to create a centered ground, achieving customer satisfaction, profitability, market share and growth, and our contribution of products and services. Now, let's just say I want you to do this for a care home. So if you have not met ChatGPT, I highly recommend you do, because it will save you hours of time. So ChatGPT is AI technology, and you can see here I've lifted this out, and I've just said, look, let's do core activities and goals for a care home. The core activities for the care home revolve around planning, exceptional care, support residents. So it's created it for us. Now, obviously, I don't want you to cheat and copy. This is about giving you the ideas, because the more information you tell this, the better it is. So, for example, we are LGBT plus Q. I think it's probably changed. It's keep changing QI. Care home for oh, one. So there you go. So it's now personalizing your core activities, your goals, and your services. And it's important to have this because this is what we're all coming to work for. This is what we're saying. This is what we all believe in. So having some core activities and values and beliefs is great. So ChatGPT creates anything. And again, we're going to be using ChatGPT for a lot of stuff. Job descriptions, AI, specs, statements of purposes, you name it. We're going to be using it. So when we think about employees' contributions, it covers everything, doesn't it? Because ultimately we're in business. So our staff are naturally our sales team anyway. If we have good, rounded staff that are polite, courteous, follows our values and principles, follows our core beliefs, they're going to sell the products anyway because they sell what they know. This is our service. This is what we do. Keeping it nice and simple. Behind that, you're going to have a product development team, which is normally your leadership team. They're going to be looking at ways of developing the service, making it unique, that unique selling point, being competitive, benchmarking against nationally. You'll have your customer support team. So, thinking about people coming in and out. And remember with customer service, I'm not going to go on about customer service, but you have your internal customer, which has everyone within your service, stakeholders, staff, residents, and you have your external customers. And everyone should be treated with the same respect. And I remember going back early 90s, which sounds a long time now, but early 90s, my matron always said to me, when somebody comes to our door, you always offer them a cup of tea. Well, a drink. Because you make them feel welcomed, you get them to come in, would you say, and can I get you a drink? And it was just that, like you said, it's just that welcoming feel, that very first thing across the door. And then your operations support team. So again, looking at the people that are responsible for managing the day-to-day. So improving customer service is really important. And with your HR head on, you need to be thinking about all of the staff that work in this organization are in a customer service role, whether we like it or not. Everyone is in a customer service role. And the way that they act, the way that they talk, the way that they behave will influence whether or not somebody wants to come back. So they should understand the organisation and its offerings. They should understand the extended product. They should be able to make personalised recommendations, and they should be really good at problem solving. And again, explaining and promoting offers, they should use clear and concise language to family members or to staff or to customers or whoever. They should be able to highlight those key benefits of the business. So when you're talking to somebody, you should be able to say to them, what is it that makes us unique? What is it that makes us different? And that will then go back to those values and those core planning pieces. They should be able to demonstrate what we do, and they should show that they can ask and listen more effectively. So when you think about customer service, and it's not something that's always, unless you're from the retail side, it's not something that's always taught in health and social care. But customer service, basically, whether you like it or not, healthcare is a business, one of the most lucrative businesses out there. And if we don't treat people well, they have choices. They don't have to come to us. So understanding those organizations' dynamics then. So again, understand those roles and responsibilities, looks at the way that the structure's done, that hierarchy of structure. So depending on the type of service will depend on the different types of organizational structures that you have. So whether or not you're part of a chain, if you're part of a chain, you may have an area manager, etc. But if you're in a small group, you may not. And understand those roles and responsibilities. Thinking about those products and services, you need to think about how you in a HR role can align to those and make contributions, and how you identify areas for improvements. That external marketplace looks at the landscapes, look at those industry trends, and looks at the regulatory environment. And again, the regulatory environment will change per business. So if you're in hospitality, you're going to have environmental health, you're going to have fire regulations, you're going to have HACCPs, hazard analysis, critical control points. If you're in retail, you may have Sales of Goods Act, you may have freedom of information, you may have financial regulatory stuff. And if you're in the care sector, you're going to have environmental health, EHO, fire officers, CQC, and Ofsted, or whoever, or again, NHS if you've got an NHS contract. So thinking about those, because your role really is to help prevent all of that. So the importance of your role then, really know how you fit within the organisation, understand the departments, understand how it all comes together. It helps employees understand their responsibilities, it impacts the organisation and helps progress. The more people understand, the more people are working towards those common goals, the better it is. And it has a fostering and a sense of belonging and purpose and enrichment. And we know through lots of studies that have happened now that people do not come to work just for better pay. Yes, of course, it helps. But what helps and what people want more is to work in an organization where they feel heard, where they feel valued, where they feel respected, where they feel that there's career progression, where they feel that they're part of a team, where they feel it's safe, and where they have a sense of shared ownership. And that's where the co-ops model come from. So it's really important to think about why we're going to work. It then feeds into the importance of those operating values. And I know I've gone on about this, but it is one of your knowledge requirements. Understanding those values, the culture, the background, the equality, the diversity, the inclusivity, the goals of coming together, the buzzwords, those sweeping statements is what brings you all together. And if you haven't got that in your business, how are you all going towards the same goal? How are you all channeling that same line? And again, by doing that, you align everyone to the same operating values, which means you will have a productive workforce and a positive workforce. Because all you're going to then do is strengthen the culture in which you have created around those values. So, really, the homework from this is if you don't know your company's values, go away and learn them. If you look at your company's values and just go, I don't understand them, because we were doing values back 20 odd years ago, and I think they were written and they were either really lengthy or they were a bit woolly. Go back and say to your team, does this represent us? Does this sound like us? Because when you manage performance, it is so easy to manage performance against values. If somebody's not being personal centered, you in an HR meeting can say to them, look, these are our company values. Can you tell me how you feel what you did there meets those? Oh, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. So what can we do now to support you to meet those values? So it takes away the emotion behind managing HR. So in conclusion, understanding your organizational structure helps employees navigate their roles more effectively. And again, as you as HR support, it's more important because that's one of your functions. You obviously need to become familiar with your products and services because again, you are managing the functions of the business, you are managing the people and supporting the infrastructure. So if you don't understand them, how do you then know that that's the right person for that service? You need to have an understanding of the external marketplace and the dynamics and how it goes up and down and look at trends. You should understand your own role within those organizations to foster that performance of contributions and bringing it together and understand that one value and vision. And throughout everything you do, you should be upholding the operating values and promoting the company's culture at all times because you are the beacon of values and culture. So, if we go back to our lesson, that's the PowerPoint there. So in here, what we now have is, if you click on here, we've got a short video, which I'm not going to play now because obviously you can click there. But it runs through a video of just understanding different organizational values and businesses. We then click next. And here is a book which you can download. And it just looks at, again, what we've been talking about. So understand business function. So again, you can print this out, you can write through it. You can use this as a study aid towards the end, but you can see it runs through really what we've just talked about in this last section. So understand the functions of HR, looking at your organizational structures, how they're set up, looking at your knowledge, products and services, and understanding the external marketplace, and then your role within that organization. Looking at those values, so you can see how important it is to understand those values, and then looking at the application in role, so this is you applying it, and looking at strategic alignment. So strategic alignment is then those values, linking it back to the business plan or your statement of purpose and service user guides. And then looking really at how the HR role manages the business strategy, so a bit more in depth there, and then implementing that through the business. So some quite interesting stuff just to screen. So you've got a month to read that. We've already done that PowerPoint, so we don't need to do that. So here then is just, again, just a very quick overview of what we've talked about today. So we've looked at the hierarchy layouts, the roles and responsibilities. We've talked about products and services. Again, you heard me talk about the unique selling point, the USP. We haven't talked about the life cycle throughout this, but the life cycle is we have a product or a service, we're going to implement it, we're going to review it, and we're going to see how it's reviewed. So you have like an implementation period, you have your products and service, and you're going to review that. Because again, what you don't want to be doing is bringing in something and then not reviewing its success. So has it made a difference? Has it improved profit or turnover or satisfaction or whatever? And if it's not working, change it. You know, definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. So being mindful of that. Looking at the organization's values there as well. So this is now your first piece of coursework. So in here, you need to discuss the importance of the business and the HR professional within your essay. Explain how knowledge and organization structures products and services and examine the market sector. So this is all of the stuff that we've covered. Additionally, analyze how adherence to the organization values and impact your HR's functions and overall business success. And it's giving you kind of like an essay layout. So a bit of an introduction. So define who you are, look at your products and services, look at those organizations and structures, look at your products and services, and then come up with a conclusion. Now, I'm just going to show you in, again, ChatGPT. You are not to use this. This is just to help you with a structure. So because it's from above, it knows that I'm doing an LGBT thing. It will write me an answer. Now, obviously, I will know if you have used AI because it does lots of simple things where I can spot it. So it has little stars and asterisks. It's got Zs where Z shouldn't be. But anyway, you can see there, it's written me a nice answer. And again, obviously, when I read it, I'm not going to know who you are as a business. So it's important as a business to, sorry, as a student to make sure this reflects your business. So again, I'm just doing this to show you how this system works. So here, you're in here. Oh, I need to be in student view, sorry. So in student view, I'm going to hit start assignment, and then there I can pop my answer in. So it's just a cut and paste. And once I've done that, I submit the assignment. You'll get some glitter on the page. There we go. And then that's the assignment done. Now, it's a pass or fail as such. And what we're really looking for is just that you've understood the requirements of the project. So that's done. Now, what you will then see, oh, actually, probably from a student viewpoint, if we go back here, as it doesn't show it on here, but what happens is this gets ticked green. So once you finish that, that's it done. So for this month, you're only concentrating on business understanding, and that's your work there for this month. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an understanding of your HR functions, in understanding your business. And in next month, we're going to be looking at legislations and policies. So it'll be really useful for you to start digging out your policies and procedures relevant to your roles and responsibilities for next month's session. Anyway, thanks for watching and take care.